Greetings, my audience. I'm going to review the Star Wars trilogy, the original OG one, and the prequel trilogy with Anakin Skywalker starring the character. And I thought these movies were fun, entertaining, corny popcorn movies. I give them a 7 out of 10. They will rot your brain and kill your brain cells that you don't need for the sake of action's coolest sci-fi action you'll see in your life shot. That takes you on a roller coaster ride of space adventures. Goofy, corny, serious storytelling. That's kind of corny storytelling. That sounds like made-up writing stuff. But it tricks your brain into believing the suspension of disbelief. Like stuff like Force was who knew the Force would become popular? The word like Force. Well, lifesavers. Besides being a candy, that's a Thin Mint candy that you can buy on the market. Besides something that Star Wars product calls it. Besides a candy. Lightsaber candies. I remember those. My favorite was Wintergreen. Of the lightsaber candies. And I always thought the the character Yoda was a bit of a funny little fella. He seemed like he's a fella that has a case of dementia in the original trilogy, because he was always a cranky old fuck of a bastard. And I thought he was funny how he just hit R2-D2 trying to get something because he was hitting R2-D2 like a cranky old man. That was funny shit. That happens in the sequel to the original trilogy, where Luke trains on Tatooine. This planet where Yoda is training. Where he finds Yoda, the forgotten, one of the old relics of the past, Jedi Knight. He trains him the way of the Force in the Jedi Knight path. Blah blah blah. Training begins by Yoda. But he has to stop his training. But by the time he returns in the third installment to finish his training, Yoda's time is years because he's over 100 years old. And he's in his hundreds, so his time is near. He can't train him anymore. He won't live that long enough to train him. So he has to give him the bare value. He's going to die. He's too old to do it. To train and keep living. He knows his time is near because he sensed it was the Force. Ooh. Cool, huh? Yes. That made up bullshit. Magic writing, we'll call it. Then we find out what the Force is created of, called midi-chlorians. Interesting fact, I found out thanks to this YouTuber, Papa Meat, that I'd follow and watch his content. I found another word for midi-chlorians is another word that I used to originate from chiropractors. Is what they originally believed, saying that midi-chlorians is involved originally with chiropractic history. Before it took another term with the Force origin of what midi-chlorians are in the mythology by George Lucas imagination. That happens in the Phantom Menace first installment to the prequel saga. Explained. Through Master Qui-Gon, who played by Liam Neeson, the actor, explains to young Padawan Anakin Skywalker, who will become Darth Vader in the Force. The third installment in the original prequel trilogy. That was the original. That was a trilogy that came before the sequel trilogy. That brought to you by Disney. And the less I said about that Disney trilogy, the better, because I really didn't like the Disney trilogy. It was disappointing. The whole thing was shit from the get-go. It's just like nothing fun to rewatch again. But these movies are the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, I give. I don't know which one I like more, the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy. They both have interesting tellings. One's about, in the original trilogy, a young Padawan becoming a Master Jedi, and, well, who can get the girl, Princess Leia, with his best buddy, Han Solo, on space adventures. And the original trilogy is about a young man falling to the past, to the dark side, after taking him from his home and recruited into battle as a Jedi Knight. From Master Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padawan, who will become Master Kenobi in the sequel, once Qui-Gon gets killed off at the end of the first installment to the prequel trilogy. I know it's complicated stuff, but it explains it well. All of this complicated, convoluted stuff. Very, very paced-well. However, I never cared for the character Jar Jar Binks from the prequel trilogy, and he's in the whole thing in the prequel trilogy. He's less in it in each installment, but he's still in it even in the third one that nobody mentions. I was rewatching the prequel franchise, so I wish he just was not in the sequel, any of the sequels after the first one. They should have just removed him from the franchise. Because I don't know why they didn't. He doesn't add anything other than questionable reasons of why he's there. And why does Princess not Leia, the other princess in the prequel trilogy. What's her name? I forget. She's played by Natalie Portman in the prequel trilogy, and it just doesn't make sense why would Natalie Portman put him, Jar Jar Binks, in her position that she's supposed to be working on court stuff for the council, and just like leave it to Jar Jar Binks. And he's the reason why we got Emperor Palpatine in power in the first place. Because Jar Jar Binks is an idiot. And that's something that the girl, Natalie Portman's cat, didn't want it. It's explained in the movie. Like, it didn't... For some reason, it's not really explained. I guess that was, like, deleted from deleted room. That was from... Probably got some of the stuff... There's a lot happened in the sequel installment to the prequel trilogy called Attack of the Clones. A lot gets set up for the third installment, then gets paid off for the third one. While also telling its own coherent story, and I think the old movies did a good job connecting them all while telling this coherent narrative. Personally, I think the prequel trilogy did a better job at telling a coherent, compelling narrative outside of just having better visual effects for the time compared to the original trilogy had. Okay, so that's why I give Star Wars trilogy and the prequel trilogy a 7 out of 10. They have fun score. I approve them. That I enjoy them. As a 7 out of 10, fine guilty pleasures like Little Shop of Horrors flick. The remake, that was a musical that became more well known, not the black and white one that the people ended up forgetting about and didn't gain as massive appeal as the remake. The black and white one had Jack Nicholson in it, I think. He played a small role in that movie. He played the character that Bill Murray played with the dentist scene in the original. In the remake of Little Shop of Horrors. The original was okay, but it wasn't as fun as the remake. Personally, I think. And, yeah, that's my thoughts on the Star Wars trilogy and the original trilogy, also known as the Star Wars sequel trilogy to the original trilogy. That's the prequel trilogy. Because the prequel trilogy takes place in the timeline before the original trilogy, so technically the sequel trilogy is the original trilogy. The prequel trilogy is the second trilogy. And Disney trilogy is in a trilogy on its own universe, I guess. Because I don't know how that connects to the original one or the prequel trilogy. I thought the trilogy was Rey. I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10. I mean, not a 7, fuck. I got confused. I forgot what movie I was going to talk, what trilogy. Okay, I'm giving the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy a 7 out of 10 with Anakin and Luke. And the Rey trilogy, a 1 out of 10. Or a 2 out of 10. To be generous for each installment. But I don't know why I would want to be generous. I want to be jealous, selfish. So I'm giving them all 1 out of 10. The original Disney trilogy until they make another trilogy I hear they want to do with Rey character. But when is that going to happen? Probably not going to make money. Probably not going to have any money to make off of it because the ones with Rey, each one made less money than the other one. The first one made its most financial money back. Thus, The Force Awakens. That never really happened with the original, either trilogy. I remember, like, all the trilogies, the one that George Lucas did, each installment made this money back and a shit ton of money, even though each one was divisive among people for liking or hating or feeling somewhere in between about it. Star Wars sequels after the first one, even the first one. You know, that's just after the first. That's just, I find out, like, you know, doing research on YouTube and internet, that a lot of the people never were fully satisfied with any of the Star Wars sequels in the original trilogy originally. People just take things way too seriously, I think. Because, look, the Star Wars movies are a love letter to space adventures, action, sci-fi shit. Is what the Star Wars is what George Lucas said it himself. He made Star Wars of all these stories he grew up loving as a kid and inspired him to make Star Wars of old space things he used to watch as a kid involving sci-fi. And that's what he based Star Wars off the shit he watched as a kid. So he made an original movie out of his stuff he watched as a kid, something he liked. So that's what and when you look at it like that, it's pretty cool of a franchise, what he did. When you look at it like that, like what his passion, what it was, and why he made it, and how he made it. When you look at it like that angle, it is still pretty impressive a franchise. maybe we should all enjoy George Lucas's work for what it was. A love letter to sci-fi instead of an original concept. Is what we should all love it as, I think. Because it's that good of a movies. These are, I thought, incredible. Blew my mind with the spectacle. Each installment to this legacy franchise was the original and the prequel franchise. The Rey franchise, the last franchise brought to you by Disney Studios, didn't really have anything to offer me outside of cool visuals for one-time viewing. And I can just care less. Nothing blew my mind. They really didn't like do anything spectacle with it. It didn't feel like they did have love because it liked the genre that George Lucas fell in love with. It just felt like they just wanted to make money, and I hear that's what the problem. That's where the heads were at, the creators, how to make money not out of love. So that's kind of sad. I feel like a kind of a sad compared to what George Lucas wanted to do. He just wanted to make a movie of the genre that he grew up loving as a kid. Space opera, space adventures, and action stuff with space, And that's my thoughts on the Star Wars franchise. From Phantom Menace to Rise of Skywalker in that chronological order. Episode 1 is Phantom Menace. The last movie installment is in the saga. Is Rise of Skywalker. If you can connect somehow, put together any of the how the Skywalker trilogy connects with Rey, I don't understand how it fits with any of the movies. Because Rey Skywalker franchise kind of retcons everything and makes no sense to me. Like, what happened to Luke's green lightsaber in the Force that he had last? How did he got his old lightsaber that was blue? It's a real question I want to know. But I don't think the thinkers of the creators thought of that. Because they were just focused on, hey, what would be cool, what fans want. They gave. Instead of doing what they thought would be cool to see. That would be in Star Wars different and stuff. But and it never experimented on what to do with the new characters. It just experimented with the old characters by killing them off and dumbing them down and making them pointless in action and scenes and using force out of nowhere, like Leia, or killing Han out of nowhere, and he didn't see he was going to get killed by his own son. Didn't see that coming. I mean, it's so obvious that he probably is hostile to you. Tons of stuff in The Force Awakens, and he deserves to die. Sorry. For being that stupid and clueless. This is stupid. I give the trilogy, that last trilogy with Star Wars, a 1 out of 10. I just hated it every moment. So that's my thoughts on the Star Wars saga. All installments with Star Wars in the title. In the main franchise saga. I don't know how the Disney ones connect at all. They just don't make sense to me. Maybe some people will find it makes sense, but I don't. Okay, so that's my thoughts on Star Wars franchise saga. From the original to the last one. In the main timeline of Star Wars trilogies. And interesting thing of Star Wars, they were going, this was always meant to be this main trilogies, but Star Wars before Lucas had plans on making another trilogy before he gave the rights to Disney. He shouldn't have done that if he had ideas, I think. Foolish of him. Because he ends up not having any creative input in the final setting of Star Wars of any of the solo installments. So that's kind of sad he didn't see that coming. That they were going to backstab, that could happen. Like no more of his creative input will be in the final, will be anything, really. Then, honestly, I just hated the trilogy with Rey. So let down. Okay, so that's my thoughts on Star Wars. Goodbye. Subscribe to my content. Hit the thumbs up to like this video. Hit the comment section below to comment if you have any thoughts to share, my audience. Good night.